वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। नष्टप्रायेष्वभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवतसेवया भगवतीरुत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवती नैष्टिकी। कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय देवकीनन्दनाय च नन्दगोपकुमाराय गोविन्दाय नमो नमः। ओमज्ञानतिमिरन्दस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरोन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। नमः ॐ विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्तस्वामिन्निति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभो नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधार श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। So we already revised this one.
Yes, Rahulji. We started 10 minutes early so that
Okay.
we could do the recap. Because too many questions, answers were there, no?
So Jiva Goswami is saying that Ata Shrutestaccharitvam Siddham. Hmm. Ah. Thus it has been explained how the Vedas describe the Lord as he engages in pastimes related to his own inherent nature. Ah. Ata Shrutestaccharitvam Siddham. Hmm. Sakshacharitvam cha Nistraigunyanam Swatayeva. Ah. Thus, it has been proved that the Shrutis are able to describe him. Shrutesta charitvam siddham. So, there are two kinds of Shrutis. Shrutis dealing with the three gunas, Shrutis which deal with which are above the three gunas. The Nistraigunya Shrutis, they do so. That means they describe the Supreme Lord directly, is self-evident. Swatayeva siddham. Anyesham, that means Traigunya Suddhi. Anyesham tu tadekavakyataya jneyam. The other Shrutis, that means the Shrutis which do not deal with the Shrutis which deal with the three gunas. The other Shrutis define the Lord through ekavakyataya, through conformity with those statements. Other Shrutis, they describe the Supreme Lord. They define the Lord through conformity with those statements of Nistraigunya Shrutis. Maya nirasanartameva tattad gunanuvadaha kriyate. Maya nirasanartameva tattad gunanuvadaha kriyate. They speak of the various gunas only to dismiss Maya. They speak of the various gunas only to dismiss Maya. This is not there, this is not this, this is not this, like that. They speak of the various gunas only to say that how these gunas coming from the Maya are not present in that absolute truth, are not present in the Brahman. पश्चादखण्डमेव ताम निरस्य साक्षात् भगवतः स्वरूप गुणादिकं निर्दिश्यत इति तदेकवाक्यता द्योतनया सयेष एव सिद्धान्तो अस्मिन् उपक्रमवाक्ये समुद्दिष्टः. So they speak of the various gunas only to dismiss Maya. Thereafter, rejecting Maya categorically, they directly delineate the nature. Pachad akandameva tam nirasya sakshat bhagavata swarupa gunadikam nirdishyata. They directly delineate the nature, attributes, and so on of the Lord. In this way, by showing the conformity of the various Shrutis, this very conclusion that the Shrutis are able to describe him. So the main question of Parishit Maharaj, let us not lose focus on the main subject of this anuccheda. The anuccheda, the first question was that Parishit Maharaj was asking, how can the Vedas, which deal with the three gunas, how can they describe the absolute truth? Who is ineffable, who is beyond the three gunas, and who is beyond all cause and effect. Brahman. So that is the question. In this way, by showing the conformity of the various Shrutis, the very conclusion that the Shrutis are able to describe him has been instructed in the opening statement of the Shrutis prayer. The 10.87.14. That is the prayer which we are discussing. So the opening statement also confirms this. The Shrutis are able to describe the Supreme Lord. And the concluding prayer, that is 10.87.41, that also confirms. As well as in their concluding statement. What is the concluding statement? Tato upasamharecha. Upakrama means beginning statement. Upasamhara means concluding statement. So here the word upakrama is there. Upakrama vakye samuddishtaha. And then upasamharecha. Tatopasamharecha. Shrutayastvaihi palanti palantyatannirasanena bhavan nidanaha. Palantyatannirasanena bhavan nidanaha iti. So in the concluding statement, the Shrutis, whose final conclusion is in you alone, become successful palanti by atannirasanena, by revealing you indirectly through the method of negating everything that is not you. That is through the method of neti. Through the method of negating everything that is not you. Palantyatannirasanena bhavan nidanaha iti. So Shrutayascha Madhvabhashya Pramanitaha. So now he is quoting, there are also Vedic statements to support this, such as the following cited by Sri Madhvacharya in his Brahma Sutra Bhashya. So some statements quoted by Madhvacharya in his commentary to Brahma Sutra, that's quoted. न चक्षुर्न श्रोत्रं न तर्को न स्मृतिर्वेदो ह्यैव न चक्षुर्न श्रोत्रं न तर्को न स्मृतिर्वेदो ह्येवैनं वेदयति. ब्रह्मसूत्र धृतबाल लवेय श्रुतिहि. What is the meaning? The Lord can be known only through the Vedas, not by the eyes, ears, logic or smriti. Na chakshur, na shrotram, na tarko, na smritir. Vedo hyaiva, vedo hyevainam vedayati. Only by the Vedas we can know. That means this shows that with the Vedas describe the Supreme Lord. He is emphatically saying, it's the Vedic statement. Another statement. Aupanishadaha Purushaha Ityadyascha. Brahma Sutra 3.9.26. I wish to know about that person who is known through the Upanishads. So this is the this part of the Anucheda. We have not completed the 98th Anucheda. It is still there. So the Shrutis, I will read the commentary. The Shrutis address the Lord by the name Ajita, the invincible. So let us once go through the shloka of this particular section. Once recited. Shri Shrutaya Uchuhu Jaya somebody can repeat. Jaya Jaya Jahyajamija Jahyajajita Jaya 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 Jahyajajita Dosha Gribita Gunam Jaya Jaya Jahyajam Ajita Dosha Grihibita Gunam
जय जय जह्यताम् अजितदोषग्रभीतगुणाम्
त्वमसि यदात्मना समवरुद्ध समस्तभगः
त्वमसि यद् आत्मना समवृद्धसमस्तभगः
अज जगदोकसामखिलशक्त्यवबोधकते
अगजगदोकशाम् अखिलशक्ति अवबोधकात्ते
क्वचिदजयात्मना च चरतोऽनुचरेन्निगमः
क्वचिदजयात्मना च चरतोऽनुचरन्निगमः.
I'll read the BBT translation. Jaya Jaya, victory to you, victory to you. Ajita, O unconquerable one. By your very nature, Samavaruddha Bhugaha, you are perfectly full in all opulences. Therefore, Ajam, Dosha Grivita Gunam Jahi, therefore please defeat the eternal power of illusion, who assumes control over the modes of nature. Dosha Gribita Gunam, to create difficulties for the conditioned souls. Ababodhaka, you who awaken all the energies of the moving and non-moving embodied beings. Kvachid, sometimes the Vedas can recognize you as you sport with your material and spiritual potencies. Kvachid ajayatmana, ajaya atmana cha charato anucharen nigamaha. The Shrutis address the Lord by the name Ajita, the invincible. This indicates the sound of his name has the power to reach him and attract his attention. This is possible only if that name is also transcendental, as nothing material can approach the Lord. Since there is no duality in the Supreme Lord, the Lord's name is non-different from him. Therefore, realization of his name is the same as realizing him. His name carries power even if chanted out of fear or anger. This is evident from the history of Ajamil. The holy name is the mature fruit of the Vedas, Sakala Nigama Valli Satpalam Chit Swarupam. That the Shrutis describe the Lord by the Mukhya Vritti as well as by the other Vrittis. When they call the Lord by the word Ajita, they are describing the Supreme Lord by Mukhya Vritti as well as by other Vrittis. In commenting on 10.87.14, Jiva Goswami cites numerous Shruti mantras that describe the Lord in different types of vrittis, such as Mukhya Vritti, Tatparya Vritti, Rudi Vritti, and Lakshana Vritti. Sri Jiva Goswami next explains how the various sections of the Vedas define the Lord. the Vedas can be divided into two parts. Traigunya, or that dealing with the three gunas of nature. And Nistraigunya, the portion dealing with the transcendental reality beyond the three gunas. The Traigunya part includes the Karma Kanda and Upasana Kanda sections, describing various types of sacrifices and prayers to the gods. The Nistraigunya part has two divisions, that concerning the Brahman, Brahma Paraka, and that concerning Bhagavan, Bhagavat Paraka. So all these various divisions of the Vedas define the Lord directly or indirectly. So Nistraigunya portions, they describe the Supreme Lord directly. Traigunya portions, they describe the Lord through indirectly. This is the significance of the phrase Charato Anucharet Nigamaha, which will be further discussed below. The Nistraigunya part of the Vedas directly describe Bhagavan. This is a short commentary to this section. Now we'll go to the next. So starting from here. Ata Visheshato Brahmanyapi Yatha Charanti Brahmani Charantinamapi Yatha Bhagavatyeva Paryavasanam Tataivodishanti. Tataivodishanti. Now the Shrutis explain how the Vedic mantras specifically describe Brahman, and additionally how even while doing so their culmination is in Bhagavan alone. Visheshato Brahmanyapi yata charanti Brahmani charantinamapi yata Bhagavatyeva paryavasanam tataivo dishanti. Now he is quoting another shloka from the and the next shloka, that is 10.87.15. You can repeat after me the second prayer of the personified Vedas. Brihadupalabdametad avayant avasheshataya Brihadupalabdametad metadavayantavasheshataya.
वशेषतया
Brihat upalabdam yetad avayantyavasheshataya. Okay. Yata udayastamayau vikriter mrudiva vikritat.
यत् उदयासत्मयो विकृते मृदि वा विकृतात्
Atarushayo dhadus त्वयि मनोवचनाचरितम्.
अत ऋषयो दधुसत्वीय मनोवचनाचरितम्
कथमयथा भवन्ति भुवि दत्तपदानि नृणाम्.
कथमयथा भवन्ति भुवि दत्तपदानि नृणाम्.
I'll read the translation. They know this cosmos, the perceived. They know this cosmos, the perceived, to be immensity Brahman, to be the immensity, because it alone remains when the cosmos is dissolved. They know this because from the untransformed, that is Brahman, transformations arise and disappear, just as clay products arise and disappear from clay in its original state. As a result, the rishis have reposed the functions of their mind and speech in you. how can the footsteps of men fall elsewhere when in fact they are placed on the ground? We'll read the BBT translation also. I think little more. बृहदुपलब्धम् एतद् अवयन्त्यवशेषतया यत उदयास्तमयौ विकृतेर्मृदिवाविकृतात् अत ऋषयो ददुस्त्वयि मनो वचनाचरितम् कथमयता भवन्ति भुवि दत्तपदानि नृणाम्. This perceivable world is identified with the Supreme because the Supreme Brahman is the ultimate foundation of all existence, remaining unchanged as all created beings are generated from it and at last dissolved into it. Just as clay remains unchanged by the products made from it and again merged with it. Thus it is toward you alone that the Vedic sages direct all their thoughts, words, and acts. After all, how can the footsteps of men fail to touch the earth on which they live? So now the explanation of the shloka. They know this cosmos, the perceived to be the immensity. This cosmos is nothing but the Brahman, because it alone remains. Brahman alone remains. So, etat sarvam brihat brahmaiva upalabdam avagatam. Brihat brahmaiva upalabdam avagatam. All this is perceived or understood to be the brihat, that is Brahman, immensity alone. Katam, how is it understood as such? Tat katam vikriter vishwasya sakashad avashishyamanattvena. Vikriter vishwasya sakashad avashishyamanattvena. Because Brahman is that which remains of the transformed cosmos. Brahman is that which remains of the because Brahman is that which remains of the transformed cosmos. Vikriter vishwasya sakashad avashishyamanattvena. Kimiva, kimiva, to what can it be compared to? Mridiva. Mridi means clay, like a clay. Yata vikriter gatadehe sakashad avashishyamanattvena sarvam gatadidravyam mride vopalabdha drishta tata brihadapi tyartah. So, just as all clay products are generated from the clay and then once they get destroyed, they again merge into the clay. Just as all clay products can be understood as nothing other than clay, because clay is all that remains of its transformations in the form of pottery. Clay only becomes transformed into a pot. And when the pot is broken, it again merges into the clay, again merges into the earth. So too is Brahman, understood as the remainder of all this cosmos. So everything is generated from the Brahman, and when it is annihilated, it is merged into the Brahman. So therefore, Sarvam Brihat Brahmaiva. So Tatra Hetuhu. Tatra Hetuhu. Yato Brihatah Sakashad Vikriter Udayas Tamayau Avayanti Manyante Shrutayah. The reason for this is now given. Tatra Hetuhu. For they, the Shrutis, know or accept that the transformed cosmos arises and disappears from the immensity. For they, the Shrutis, know or accept that the transformed cosmos arises from the Brahman and it disappears from the Brahman, as stated. They are quoting a Shruti Vakya. Yato va imani bhutani jayante. From him arise these living beings. The import is, therefore, that comparison to clay is appropriate. So, tasman mritsamyam tasya yujyata iti bhavaha. So, the Brahman is compared to the clay, just like the clay products they are generated from the clay, and then when they get annihilated, they again merge into the earth. They generated from the earth, and then they are again merged into the earth. Similarly, the whole universe is generated from the Brahman, and again they get merged into the Brahman. Tarhi katam tad vikaritvam apina. The question, why is it that Brahman itself does not also undergo transformation? Katam tad vikaritvam apina. Why does Brahman also undergo transformation? Or why the Brahman does not undergo transformation? Ityahuhu avikritat shrutes avikritat. Brahman does not undergo transformation. He's quoting a Brahma Sutra. Shrutestu shabdamulatvat iti nyayena achintya shaktya tatapi tata api avikritameva yat tasmad ityartah. The Shrutis reply, avikritat, from the untransformed, shrutestu shabdamulatvat, meaning that by his inconceivable potency, he remains devoid of any transformation. In accordance with the principle, the Vedas state that the Lord is free from defects and can be understood only by revealed sound. 2127. Shrutesu shabdamulatvat. Then further, यद्यप्यत्रापि स शक्तिकमेव बृहद् उपपद्यते तथाप्याविष्कृत भगवत्वेनानुपादनात् ब्रह्मैवोपपादितं भवति सर्वथा शक्तिपरित्यागे तदुपपादानासामर्थ्यात् तुच्छत्वापाताच्च. Further, although the immensity is understood to be inclusive of potencies, even in this verse, still only Brahman is established here, as the Bhagavan aspect has not been openly disclosed. Yadyapyatrapi sa shaktikameva brihad upapadyate tatapy avishrita bhagavatvena anupadanat brahmaivopapaditam bhavati sarvata shakti parityage tad upapadanasamartyat tuchatva patach. So, although the immensity is understood to be inclusive of potencies, even in this verse, still only Brahman is established here, as the Bhagavan aspect has not been openly discussed. This is because if potencies were totally rejected, it would not be possible to establish even Brahman. And moreover, Brahman would be reduced to insignificance. So, in this verse, only Brahman has been cited. And so, agency and so on are not established in Brahman, through the example of mere clay. The Bhagavan aspect has not been openly disclosed. This is because if potencies were totally rejected, it would not be possible to establish even Brahman. And moreover, Brahman would be reduced to insignificance. So in this verse, only Brahman has been cited, and so agency and so on are not established in Brahman through the example of mere clay. So tasmad atra brahmaivodahritam atayeva mrinmatra drishtantena kartrutvadikamapi tatra nopastapitam. So in this shloka, the Brahman aspect is described. The Bhagavan is not explicitly described. Bhagavan aspect is not explicitly described. So because in the Brahman is compared to the clay. So in the clay, in this verse, only Brahman has been stated because the agency and so on are not established in Brahman through the example of mere clay. The Brahman is compared to a clay. So in that analogy, in that comparison, the agency and all are not established in Brahman. But then now he will explain that how this also culminates in the understanding of Bhagavan. So tadetat ब्रह्म प्रतिपादनमपि श्री भगवत्येव पर्यवस्यति इत्याहुः. So even but this establishment of Brahman also culminates in Bhagavan. How are they showing that? Ato ata iti. So ato Brahma pratipadanadapi ऋषयो वेदास्त्वयि श्री भगवत्येव मनस आचरितं तात्पर्यं वचनस्याचरितं अभिधानं च धदुर धृतवन्तः. So to show that the Shruti say that atah, as a result of this establishing even of Brahman, the rishis, the seers or the Vedic texts repose in you, Sri Bhagavan, the functions of their mind. That is their implicit meaning as well as the functions of their speech. Their implicit meaning as well as the functions of their speech. That is the direct meaning of their words. They do so because both Brahman and Bhagavan are one entity. And the apparent distinction is due only to the perception of the Lord's opulences, either as manifest or unmanifest. So, dvayor ekavastutvad bhagadinam avishkara navishkara darshana matrena भेदकल्पनाच भगादीनाम आविष्कार अनाविष्कार दर्शन मात्रेण भेदकल्पनाच. So they do so because both Brahman and Bhagavan are one entity, Ekavastu. And the apparent distinction is due to avishkara and anavishkara, the perception of the Lord's opulences either as manifest or unmanifest. Further, तत्रार्थान्तरन्यासः तत्र अर्थान्तरन्यासः नृणां भूचराणां सम्यक् दर्शिनां वा भुवि दत्तानि निक्षिप्तानि पदानि कथमयता भवन्ति भुवं न प्राप्नुवन्ति. So the idea is explained in this verse by an arthantaranyasa. What is arthantaranyasa? A figure of speech in which one proposition is supported by making an apparently unrelated but a parallel statement. That is called as arthantaranyasa. It will be explained in more detail. In which one proposition is supported by making an apparently unrelated but parallel statement. So this idea is explained in the verse by arthantaranyasa. So how can the footsteps of men fall elsewhere when in fact they are placed on the ground? Here men refers to all those walking on the earth. Whether any such beings are able to see properly or not, how can their footsteps be placed elsewhere? They may be able to see or not, they may be blind, but their footsteps, wherever they are, their footsteps will be placed on earth only. It cannot be elsewhere. When in fact they are placed on the ground. That is, how can they fall anywhere else but on the ground? Naturally, they can end up in the ground only. So, nृणाम भूचराणाम सम्यक दर्शिनाम asamyak darshinam va. Samyak darshinam means those who can see. Asamyak darshinam means those who cannot see. So whoever one may be, their footsteps will be placed in the ground only. Va bhuvi dattani nikshiptani padani katam ayata bhavanti bhuvam na prapnuvanti apitu tatraiva paryavasyanti. Similarly, tasmat yata katamapi pratipadayantu palitam tu tvayeva bhavati iti bhavaha. So the intent therefore is to say that in whatever manner the Shrutis explain the ultimate truth, the end result will always be you alone. Whatever the Shrutis may be explained, whether directly or indirectly, the Shrutis describe only the Brahman, the supreme absolute truth. So now he is quoting a shloka from third canto. We can repeat the shloka. ज्ञानयोगश्च मन्निष्ठो
ज्ञानयोगश्च मन्निष्ठो
नैर्गुण्यो भक्तिलक्षणः
नैगुण्यो भक्तिलक्षणः
द्वयोरप्येक एवार्थो
द्वयोरप्येक एवार्थो
भगवच्छब्दलक्षणः.
भगवच्छब्दलक्षणः.
Both the Jnana Yoga that is focused on me and the yoga characterized by unalloyed devotion, free from the gunas, have one purpose alone, which is indicated by the word Bhagavan. Dvayorap eka evartho Bhagavat Shabda Lakshana. So just like whether a person can see or not see properly, his foot will be always placed on the earth only. Similarly, the Vedas always describe the absolute truth, whether directly or indirectly. Whether it is Jnana Yoga or Bhakti Yoga, both are focused on Bhagavan only. Atra Shrutayascha Madhvabhashya Pramanitaha. So again he is quoting shlokas which are quoted by Madhvacharya in his commentary to Brahma Sutra. In this regard, there are the Shrutis cited by Madhvacharya in his Vedanta Bhashya. Hantaitameva purusham sarvani namani abhivadanti yatha nadya syandamanaha syandamana samudrayana samudram abhivishanti एवमेवैतानि नामानि सर्वाणि पुरुषमभिविशन्ति इति. Oh, what a wonder. Whenever the word Hanta is basically is an exclamation sentence. Oh, what a wonder. All names ultimately address none other than the Lord. Just as all flowing rivers heading towards the ocean assuredly enter the ocean. Similarly, all these names enter into or describe only the Supreme Lord. So originally all names relate to Bhagavan only. Secondarily, they refer to other devatas. The word Brahma refers to Bhagavan. Secondarily, it refers to the Brahma. Similarly, Shiva, etc. Hantaitameva purusham sarvani namani abhivadanti. Yatha nadya syandamana samudrayana samudram abhivishanti. एवमेवैतानि नामानि सर्वाणि पुरुषम अभिविशन्ति इति. Let us read commentary to this part. The Shrutis continue to explain in the second verse of the personified Vedas prayers how their words can function directly in relation to the Lord, even though He is transcendental. Here it is stated that the ultimate purpose even of the mantras that describe Brahman culminates in Bhagavan. Even the mantra that describe the impersonal Brahman culminates in Bhagavan. The inspiration for this verse comes from two passages in the Chandogya Upanishad. The first is the famous Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma. So what is that passage? Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma Tajjalan iti Shanta Upasita. All this is indeed Brahman, which is the source of its creation, maintenance, and dissolution. Knowing this, a person becomes established in peace and worships him. The second passage is Chandogya Upanishad 6.1.4. This section begins when Shweta Ketu is sent to study all the Vedic sciences and returns home after 24 years, a little arrogant and proud of his learning. So his father asks him, I'll read the passage. Yata somyaikena mritpindena sarvam mrinmayam vigyatam syat vacharambanam vikaro nama deyam mritiketyeva satyam. 1 minute. So the father of Shwetaketu is asking Shwetaketu when he saw that Shwetaketu is little arrogant. What is the one thing that upon being known makes all other things automatically known? By knowing clay, one knows all objects made of clay. The modification is but a name based on the words, and the clay alone is real. So, yasmin vijnate sarvameva vijnatam bhavati. By knowing the supreme absolute truth, one knows everything. Krishna says in Gita 7.2, Jnanam teham savijnanam idam vakshyam asheshatah yajnatva neha bhuyonyat jnatavyam avashishyate. I will describe both jnana and vijnana, by knowing which there will be nothing which will remain to be known. The Shrutis do not refer to, so basically, these two verses of the Chandogya Upanishad, the inspiration for this personified Vedas prayers, that is second prayer, comes from one is Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma, and then this question asked by the father of Shvetaketu to Shvetaketu. The Shrutis.
Prabhuji, what significance that arrogant had over here? Because he's answered correctly, no? That clay,
No, the father is asking the question.
Yeah, but they said arrogant son, no? So, but he was quite humble to answer rightly, no?
No,
Why
yes,
that?
this is just simply the question of the father. And then, what the answer of the Shvetaketu, that is not mentioned. So the Shrutis do not refer to any personal form in this universe, in this verse. So in this shloka, the Shrutis do not refer to any personal form. This perceivable world is identified with the Supreme because the Supreme Brahman is the ultimate foundation of all existence, remaining unchanged as all created beings are generated from it and at last dissolved into it. Just as clay remains unchanged by the products made from it and again merged with it. It is toward you alone that the Vedic sages direct all their thoughts, words, and acts. After all, how can the footsteps of men fail to touch the earth on which they live? So, in this shloka, the Shrutis do not refer to any personal form in this verse. They mention simply the immensity, Brihat, that is the source of creation and dissolution. So, clay is the origin of clay parts. When the parts break, they again turn back into clay. Clay has form and the ability to be the source of clay parts. Brahman, which is being compared to the clay, must also have energy to give rise to the cosmos. Therefore, Brahman ultimately informs us of Bhagavan. So Brahman is compared to the clay. Clay gives rise to different clay parts, and the clay parts, when they get broken, they again become clay. So clay has the energy to give rise to different clay parts. Therefore, Brahman must also have energy to give rise to the cosmos. Therefore, Brahman ultimately informs us of Bhagavan, since Brahman itself is without the manifest energies, without the manifest will or knowledge to create. But Bhagavan has energies, will, and knowledge. So, example of clay applies because both Brahman and clay share the common quality of being the source either of the material cosmos or of the earthly parts, respectively. So, the purpose of describing Brahman here is to define Bhagavan. So, this verse describes Brahman, but the purpose of describing Brahman is that it ultimately describes Bhagavan. So, by pointing out this general characteristics of Brahman, Bhagavan has also been defined. The Shrutis here make use of a poetic device called as Arthantaranyasa to establish one meaning by defining something else. Arthantaranyasa is a particular figure of speech. So Kavi Karnapur defines Arthantaranyasa in Alankara Kaustuba as follows. When a general instance is corroborated by a particular one, or vice versa, that means when a particular instance is corroborated by a general one, either through resemblance or contrast. Such an aesthetic embellishment is called arthantara nyasa. Yasmin vishesha samanyam samartyate parena yat sadharmyat ata vaidharmyat sanyaso arthantarasya hi. The following example may be given to show how a specific instance is used to support a general principle. So, the famous verse from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Govinda Swayamakaro Saroja Netre Premanda Varavapur Arpanam Saki Karpanyam Nakuru Daravaloka Dane Vikrite Karini Kimankushe Vivadaha. O lotus-eyed beauty, you yourself were blind with love for Govinda. And so, you made a gift to him of your body. Yet now, you are being miserly with your glances. Does one bicker about the gourd after already selling the elephant? After selling the elephant, which person will bicker over the gourd? You are already being blind with love for Krishna. You already given your own body. So now why are you being miserly with your glances? So in this example, Radha Saki explains a general principle about quibbling over trivial matters after the most difficult tasks have already been dealt with. She introduces the specific case of haggling over the price of a gourd. That is the stick used to control an elephant after the elephant has already been sold. Similarly, in the current shloka, the principle asserted is that the descriptions of the Supreme Truth, no matter how indirect, still lead ultimately to Bhagavan. The Arthantara Nyasa or introduction of an apparently unrelated matter is that of the footsteps of men walking on the earth. So Brahman is the generic manifestation of Bhagavan as it has no manifest characteristics. Brahman is described as the cause of the cosmos to help us understand Bhagavan. If Brahman is the cause, it must have potency because an impotent object cannot be the cause of the cosmos. One who is inclusive of or self-endowed with potency is called Bhagavan, or the possessor of energies. Bhagavan. So, Bhaga plus Matup Pratyaya, that means endowed with Bhaga potencies. So, the Shrutis say that no matter whether a man is ignorant or wise, when he takes a step, his foot falls nowhere else but on the ground. Similarly, whatever the Shruti may establish, whether it describes about Brahman or anything else, or even the Devatas, it ultimately describes about the Bhagavan only. Its ultimate purpose is to glorify Bhagavan, as he is the substratum of everything, including Brahman. Just like whether a person places the foot, whether the person is blind or not blind, his foot will always fall on the earth only. Similarly, the Shrutis, whether they describe Brahman or Bhagavan, it only describes about Bhagavan only. All names of the Absolute refer ultimately to Bhagavan. In the same way, all rivers finally reach the sea, though they may at times flow in the opposite direction. Ultimately, they reach the sea only. Although sometimes the rivers may be going in the opposite direction of the ocean. Sometimes it may be going in the opposite direction, but ultimately it reaches the sea. Similarly, sometimes it may appear that certain words are not describing the Bhagavan, but ultimately all names describe the Bhagavan only. So Arthantara Nyasa, no matter how indirect, even if the Vedic statements, they don't seem to be describing the absolute truth. Still, they ultimately lead to Bhagavan only. So Arthantara Nyasa, introduction of an apparently unrelated matter, is that of the footsteps of men walking on the earth. So Arthantara Nyasa, for example, I think we discussed during the Niti Shataka class also. One example of Arthantara Nyasa. Hmm. When another meaning related with the contextual meaning is stated, it is the figure of speech. Arthantara Nyasa. See, we discussed this in relation to the shloka. कुत्ता नस और चर्बी के अवशिष्ट थोड़े से बाग से गंदी तथा मांस रहित भी छोटी सी हड्डी को पाकर संतुष्ट हो जाता है, यद्यपि वह उसकी भूख मिटाने भर के लिए नहीं होता। सिंह गोद में भी आए हुए गीदड़ को छोड़कर हाथी का वध करता है। कष्ट में रहने पर भी सब प्राणी अपनी शक्ति के अनुसार ही फल चाहते हैं। You see, a dog rejects over a little bone destitute of flesh and filthy with small remains of tendons and fat on it, though it does not appease his hunger. But still the dog rejoices, likes to eat that, uh, like to eat that flesh which does not much fat and it is very filthy. It doesn't satisfy his hunger, but still the dog likes to eat. But the lion rejects a jackal, even though he may have come under his own paw but rejects the jackal, but lion wants to kill an elephant. Each one sets his desire on an object according to his inborn nature, although he may be in distress. Here also the Arthantara Nyasa is used. So here the particular characteristics of the lion is confirmed by the general statement of one's conduct according to his nature. So lion's example is given to explain the general statement that nobody gives up his inborn nature. Like dog is inborn nature. Dog likes to rejoice on something very meager, a food which does not have flesh, which does not have much bone, which is filthy, which does not satisfy the hunger. But still, the dog likes to eat that food because that is the nature of the dog. And the lion only want to eat by attacking the elephant. Even if the jackal comes, the lion will reject the jackal, but it only attacks the elephant and eats. That is the inborn nature of the line. So the specific example is given in order to explain the general principle that nobody gives up his nature. Each one, nobody gives up his nature. So that is why Arthantara Nyasa, that means by telling the specific, general principle is stated. Or sometimes that's the example of Arthantara Nyasa here. Another example, that Ravana, malicious to the flock of gods, had faced death by the shaft of Ram for his desire for the daughter of the king of Videha. In this world, nothing is hard to be performed by lustful person. Here the primary or contextual meaning is that nothing is difficult to be performed by lustful persons. This primary meaning is related with and corroborated by the meaning of the Ravana's death. So it is an example of Arthantara Nyasa. Anyway. So here, how wherever a person puts his foot, it ultimately falls on the earth only. Whether somebody is blind or not blind. Similarly, when the Vedas describe directly or indirectly, it ultimately describes the supreme absolute truth, Bhagavan only. That is the meaning here. So this is part of the anuccheda. So next part is a little long. Maybe I'll just begin this and then. So tadevam bhagavattvena brahmatvena cha tvamev tatparyabhidanabhyam sarvanigama gochara ityuktam. So in this way, it was stated that the Lord alone, either as Bhagavan or as Brahman, is accessible through all the Vedas, both by their implicit meaning, Tatparya, and by the direct meaning, Abhidhana. And this is real, not imaginary. To convey this, the Shrutis sing. Tacha yathartameva, natu kalpanikam ityaguhu. So now the next shloka, that is the third shloka from the personified Vedas, 10.87.16. So somebody can repeat after me. Iti tava surayas trayadipate kila lokamala.
Shall I recite, Prabhu?
Yes.
Yeah. Iti tava surayastriyadipate kila lokamala
Kshapanakatamrutabdhi mavagahya tapamsi jahuhu.
shapanakatamritabdhim avagaya tapamsi juhuhu
Kimuta punas swadhama viduthashaya kalagunaha.
किमुतपुन स्वधाम विदुताशय कालगुणाः
परम भजन्ति ये पदमजस्र सुखानुभवन्.
परम भजन्ति ये पदमजस्र सुखानुभवम्.
Prabhuji, second line, can you just repeat that first? Can you repeat that? Only that.
Shapanakata iti tava surayasтрayadipate khila lokamala kshapanakatamrutabdhimavagahya tapamsi jahuhu. Kimuta punasvadama vidutashaya kalagunaha parama bhajanti ye padamajasra sukhanubhavam. So therefore, Trayadipate, that is the Sambodhana Vibhakti, they are addressing the Lord. O Lord of the three, the wise dive into the nectar ocean of your topics. Surayas Trayadipate, Akhila Loka Malakshapana Katamrutabdi Avagahya. Avagahya means diving. Diving in what? Abdi, the ocean. What ocean? Katamrutabdi, nectar ocean of your topics. What is the nature of your nectar ocean of your topics? Akhila Loka Malakshapana, which can destroy the contamination of the entire world. The wise dive into the nectar ocean of your topics, which destroy the contamination of all the worlds. And tapamsi, and thus they give up all the ascetic practices. Tapamsi jahuhu, they give up all other paths of austerity. O Supreme One, what then to speak of those who, in the light of their own essential being, have completely rid themselves of conditioned patterns of thought, time, and the gunas, and worship that aspect of you that is experienced as a perpetual bliss. That kimuta punat swadama viduta shaya kala guna parama bhajanti ye padam ajastra sukhanubhavam. We'll read the VVD translation. O master of the three worlds, the wise get rid of all misery. Tapamsi is translated as misery. Get rid of all misery by diving deep into the nectarian ocean of topics about you, which washes away all the contamination of the universe. Then what to speak of those who, having by spiritual strength rid their minds of bad habits and freed themselves from time, are able to worship your true nature? What to speak of those who, having by spiritual strength rid their minds of bad habits and freed themselves from time, are able to worship your true nature, O Supreme One, finding within it uninterrupted bliss. So this portion, we will discuss this in the next class. So today we discuss the second verse of the personified prayers. बृहदुपलब्धमेतद् एतदवयन् अवशेषतया यद् उदयास्तमयौ विकृतेर्मृदिवा विकृतात् अत ऋषयो ददुस्त्वयि मनोवचनाचरितं कथमयता भवन्ति भुवि दत्तपदानि नृणाम्. So we discussed the shloka, that you can read the translation. Know this cosmos. They know this cosmos, the perceived to be the immensity, Brahman, because it alone remains in the cosmos is dissolved. They know this because from the untransformed, transformations arise and disappear. Just as clay products arise and disappear from clay in its original state. As a result, the rishis have reposed the functions of their mind and speech in you. How can the footsteps of men fall elsewhere when in fact they are placed on the ground? So this verse appears to describe the Brahman aspect, does not appear to describe the Bhagavan, but the Brahman aspect is compared to the clay. So the clay, in order to generate the clay part, it must have energy. So therefore, it is implied that by describing the Brahman aspect, it is implied that behind that Brahman giving rise to this cosmos, there is the energy of the Bhagavan. There is the energy of the Bhagavan. So therefore, Bhagavan aspect is indirectly described. So whether somebody is blind or not blind, wherever he puts his foot, it always falls on the earth. Similarly, whether the Vedas describe directly or indirectly, they always describe the Bhagavan. That is the meaning of this one. We'll discuss the 16th shloka next week. So we are slowly coming close to the end of this. We have another this 115th page. We have 112 pages in Sanskrit. Okay. Okay, anybody has any questions?
Prabhuji, Hare Krishna.
Yes, Prabhu.
Prabhuji, we say that Brahman is a Nirvikara, Nirvishesha, but here it is said that everything is generated from Brahman and therefore it has the energies. So even though we say that it quotes with the Bhagavan, that Bhagavan is that, then what is Brahman? Suppose if it's...
So Brahman is Bhagavan without energy. Such. Brahman is the aspect of the absolute truth without qualities and without energies. When it is said that everything is generated from Brahman, it implies that behind that Brahman is the energies of Bhagavan. That is what is mentioned. For the example, the clay, I discussed that point, that see, the example of a clay applies because both Brahman and clay share the common quality of being the source either of the material cosmos or of the earthly parts, respectively. The purpose of describing Brahman here is to define Bhagavan. So by pointing out the general characteristics of Brahman, Bhagavan has also been defined. So, see, we discussed this. The Shrutis do not refer to any personal form in this verse. They mention simply the immensity, Brihat, because the shloka is what? Brihad Upalabdha. They describe the Brihat, the Brahman aspect. They do not seem to be referring to the personal form, but indirectly the Brihat aspect, it refers to the personal form. They mention simply the immensity that is the source of cosmic creation and dissolution. So clay is the origin of clay parts. When the parts break, they turn back into clay. So clay has form and the ability to be the source of the clay parts. So Brahman, which is being compared to the clay, must also have energy to give rise to the cosmos. Therefore, Brahman ultimately informs us of Bhagavan, since Brahman itself is without the manifest energies, will or the knowledge to create. So it actually implies, it indirectly implies the presence of Bhagavan who has the energies. Because without the energies, the cosmos cannot be created. So when it is explained that all the entire cosmos is coming from Brahman, Brihat, and then it is entering into Brahman. So it implies that behind that Brahman is the Bhagavan with the energies. So that is the implication.
So my question is, Prabhu, the Brahmadis, when they say that Nirguna, Nirvishesha, so it is artificial imposition on the brain to understand the Brahman, right? Because Brahman here, as per the statement, Brahman is the Bhagavan only. When it comes to creation, Bhagavan only acts as a Brahman and creates, and dissolution also. Same way, the Brahman is a Brihat, which is total mass without any gunas in it, or without any characteristics or energies. It's very difficult to understand both actually Brahman and Bhagavan separatingly. Otherwise, we can easily understand. If I say Brahman and Bhagavan is non-different in terms of creation and other thing. But when it comes to Brahman, as per Nirvisheshavadi, then that imagining Brahman, it's a big task on our brain. How can the Brahman exist without any gunas?
Yeah.
So
Brahman is the aspect of the absolute truth without qualities, without form, without energies. Or it is explained that it is the effulgence from the body of Bhagavan. Yasya Prabha Prabhavato Jagadanda Koti. The source of Brahman is Bhagavan. Source of Brahman is the Bhagavan. Bhagavan is the basis of Brahman. But according to the Nirvisheshavadi, they say that Bhagavan's basis is Brahman. Brahman is the source of Bhagavan. So ultimately, they say everything is nothing but the formless Brahman.
That is Sunya, zero, right?
Ultimately,
what?
That's why it is similar to the Shunyavad. So ultimately, there is nothing but the Shunyavad. They say that nothing exists. Shunyavad, they say nothing exists. But in Advaitavad, they say that ultimately what exists is only the formless Brahman. That is the only thing. But because it is difficult to conceive of that, so therefore, it is difficult to conceive for the embodied soul. Therefore, we are told to worship different forms of gods. We are told to perform worship of the deities. We are told to perform Harinam Sankirtan. We are told to hear Bhagavad Gita, Ramayana, Mahabharata, etc. Because we are embodied being, we can't meditate on that impersonal form, personal Brahman. So that's how they say.
Thank you, Prabhu. Very wonderful class. It was very nicely explained.
So they reject the Vedas in the end then. Yeah.
In the ultimate final, this one, nothing remains except the impersonal Brahman. All the process of bhakti or the Vedas, everything is a tool.
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 Prabhuji, can you explain in one of your lecture you had spoken about, which I missed actually, that ghee sticks on the tongue, the hands you wash off. But what was that for?
No, that is example for Paramatma. Within the body, there is Jivatma and Paramatma. But the Jivatma gets affected by the atmosphere of the body. He gets affected with the three modes of nature. But Paramatma, although he stays within the body, he is not affected with the atmosphere of the three modes. Just like when you eat halwa, after eating halwa, we wash the hand with the soap, because there is a sticky sensation in the hand. But the same halwa also comes in contact with the tongue. But after eating halwa, we don't wash the tongue with the soap. Both are parts of the body, whether the tongue or the hand. But the tongue does not get a sticky sensation, but hand gets a sticky sensation. Similarly, Atma and Paramatma both are within the body, but Atma gets affected by the three modes, but Paramatma does not get affected. That is the analogy.
Thank you.
Okay. We'll stop here. Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, you'll send the recording, no? Whenever you have time.
Let's send soon.
Yeah.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. So Rohini Mataji also participated. ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय, श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय, गौर भक्त वृंद।